Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take a monumental stack of source material and, well, we carve out the single most potent insights for you.
For our extremely curious learner.
Exactly. Today, we are focusing our lens on the mind of a director whose creative ambition is, it's almost as famous as his box office totals. We're diving into the philosophy of a filmmaker who doesn't just make movies.
No, he meticulously engineers entire universes.
He really does.
That's right. And we're exploring the engine that drives James Cameron. This deep dive is unique because we aren't just summarizing his films, we're dissecting the internal rules, the compulsions, and the constraints he uses to push boundaries.
It's decades.
Across multiple decades. The mission today is to uncover the actionable mindset shifts that fueled this career lessons that apply whether you're building a billion-dollar franchise or, launching your own new venture.
So what are we hunting for in these notes? We want to understand the origin of this intense compulsion to create, how external constraints led to his biggest breakthrough, and how he layers these really profound, universal themes
Things like duty, empathy, conservation.
into the framework of huge, explosive cinematic spectacles.
Let's start at the very beginning, because all world building, it has to start with a spark.
Absolutely. For this particular artist, that genesis came around age 7 or 8. He saw Ray Harryhausen's legendary stop motion in the 1961 film Mysterious Island. And that single viewing just, it changed everything for him.
What's truly illuminating is that his reaction wasn't just, passive admiration. It was immediate, aggressive inspiration.
You went right home and started drawing.
A comic book, yeah.
Yeah.
And he didn't copy Harryhausen's script. He created a different scenario, castaways on a raft instead of a balloon, and designed his own creatures. He had a giant green turtle. The impulse was immediate. I saw something cool. Now I have to make something new.
And he noted the profound impact of that stop motion. We look at it today compared to modern CG, and it feels a little quaint. Exactly. But at the time, seeing models come alive on screen was just pure magic, a total disruption of reality. He later got to share that appreciation with Harryhausen himself, which must have been an incredible full-circle moment.
It connects directly to his definition of what it means to be an artist. He argues that artists are fundamentally people who can't not create.
You have to force yourself to stop.
Yes, you have to actively force yourself not to draw or write or compose. If that creative flow is just a constant need, you're basically compelled to follow that path.
I find the duality of his early creative life so fascinating because that compulsion alone isn't enough to build an empire, right? On one hand, his childhood was deeply solitary.
The quiet kid.
Totally. The quiet kid connecting with nature, finding bugs, drawing, just creating all alone.
But here's the crucial counterpoint. He also had what he called an alpha social component. He wasn't just the dreamer. He was the neighborhood leader. He organized projects, building forts, designing go-karts.
Wait, a homemade airplane? That sounds like a bit of a safety hazard waiting to happen.
Oh, for sure. It illustrates that classic inventor spirit, though.
I can only imagine the liability issues if they'd actually gotten that thing off the ground.
Well, they tried. They attempted to fly it off a tree before the rope broke and the plane crashed. But the key takeaway is the drive. He developed comfort in both the introspective, quiet zone you need for ideas and the alpha organizational zone you need to execute a massive vision.
That balance seems to be the prerequisite for anyone trying to bridge deep artistic vision with high-level execution. But that drive, it didn't immediately lead him to Hollywood.
Not at all. His path was highly non-traditional. He had this immense curiosity, went to junior college, but it just wasn't financially sustainable. So he spent years in blue-collar jobs, famously driving a truck.
Living a parallel existence.
Exactly. A 9-to-5 truck driver, but after hours, he was constantly painting, drawing, and storytelling.
He mentioned his wife at the time didn't even really grasp that creative side of him. The intensity with which he was building these hidden worlds, it sounds like that phase was just building up pressure.
It was kinetic energy waiting for a focus point. And the moment that provided the conviction, the moment to jump, was seeing Star Wars in 1977.
That film didn't just validate his interest in sci-fi, it validated the market for it.
Precisely. He was already visualizing these crazy space battles in his head, listening to fast electronic music. But when he saw a film based on exactly those kinds of crazy things become the highest grossing film in history, he realized the audience was there.
That was his moment of giving himself permission to try.
And that permission requires a terrifying level of commitment. He realized you can't be a part-time world builder. You can't keep a foot in another career, like medical school, while trying to revolutionize cinema. You have to jump in.
Wholeheartedly.
And fortune favors the prepared mind, right? While driving those trucks, he didn't waste time. He schooled himself rigorously, reading everything he could about visual effects, optics, filmmaking. When that small opportunity finally arose, he was ready. He already had the deep technical expertise.
That preparation was tested almost immediately. That first big break led to his first directing gig, and he was fired after just 6 or 7 days.
Can you imagine? He described the feeling of being at a Nekus 10 like worse off than if he'd never even tried.
Which raises that critical question for any creator. What do you do when you hit rock bottom? For him, this failure didn't just create an obstacle. It created the most powerful catalyst imaginable. Intense constraints.
He couldn't wait for a job. He had to create the job.
And the result was The Terminator.
It's the perfect case study in constraint-driven creativity. He knew he had no budget, no industry standing, so he designed the film to be plausibly cheap.
Conventional locations, present-day setting.
A noir structure, yeah. But he layered his technical expertise on top of that. He injected a high-tech concept time travel into this low-tech present-day world.
Which forced him to use his knowledge of design and practical effects to really elevate a simple premise.
Exactly. The budget constraint prevented a sprawling space opera, but it forced the rigor required to make a tight, unforgettable masterpiece. He reflected that without those limitations, he might never have created that specific, lean, and highly successful story.
That's a key takeaway for anyone listening. Limitations often breed a rigor that infinite resources just can't replicate. So, moving from that high-pressure start, let's look at his mature creative process. It seems to be driven by a constant flow of mental imagery.
Often sourced from dreams, yeah.
Right.
He finds that dreams provide imagery and these narrative corkers, those great sticky ideas, that he immediately logs on his laptop. But what's fascinating is how he views the dreaming brain. He explains it scientifically. He compares it to how a large language model works.
Wait, comparing the brain to an LLM, like a sophisticated chatbot. For listeners who know LLMs mostly as AI assistants, how does that metaphor clarify the creative process?
It sort of removes the mystery. An LLM takes massive amounts of data and puts it through a diffusion state, a noisy, chaotic process from which new, coherent patterns emerge. He suggests the brain does the same. All of life's data goes into this noisy state during sleep.
And out of that chaos, new ideas coalesce.
Exactly. You are simultaneously the creator and the watcher of that whole experience.
That engine must not stop during the day either.
It doesn't. He says daydreaming uses the same creative engine, but it's more functional and directed. The actual process of getting the story down isn't a rigid ritual, though. He calls it a slow boil.
A slow boil that generates a ton of material. He starts with fragments and images, not some linear outline. For the Avatar sequels alone, he amassed well over 1,000 pages of these fragmented notes.
The writing is driven by constant internal dialogue, that self-challenging loop. What if this kid was Quaritch's son? Nah, nobody would believe that. Wait, but it would be really cool.
It's a debate between the pragmatic filmmaker and the imaginative creator.
And the final film, the thing you see on screen, is the end result of aggressive reduction. He calls it the distillation of the best ideas.
So all that work is just to find the absolute beating heart of the story.
Right. And once the solitary writing is done, that alpha social component kicks in hard. His role shifts to team leader. He describes his function, borrowing a term from his wife, as creating the grand provocation for his creative team.
A grand provocation. What does that look like in practice?
It's setting an impossible yet inspiring problem that requires the team to invent a new solution. For the Avatar sequels, his challenge was to create a woven overwater village where everything was held in tension.
Like a spiderweb or mangrove roots.
Exactly, not built with rigid wood and nails.
That's a structural nightmare if you're trying to build a set.
Precisely. It required the designers to use unorthodox methods. They literally used pantyhose to sculpt quarter-scale models just to get the elasticity right. That kind of provocation, it results in rigorous, beautiful problem solving.
But success brings its own entirely different challenge, doesn't it? When you move to high-budget visual effects like performance capture, you gain tremendous flexibility. But he says this can be paralyzing, the curse of infinite choice.
It's a profound observation. When you are shooting traditional film, physical constraints are your editor. You only have so much light, so much space on the set. But with performance capture, since you are capturing the data of the performance,
you can put the camera anywhere you want later.
Anywhere. You can theoretically get every single shot you could ever imagine. And that means you lose the constraint that forces rigor. Instead of asking, what shot can I physically get? You have to ask, why is the camera going precisely here, aesthetically and narratively?
It forces a much deeper analysis of the
A
why.
much deeper why. And that emphasis on the why connects directly to the universal themes that give his films this global resonance. He says his goal is to push us outside of our petty little differences,
Race, culture, politics.
to focus on archetypal human universals, like the duty and love a parent has for a child, or the idea of sacrifice. That focus, the Sully's never quit family mantra, is why these massive films travel so effortlessly across every culture.
And these deep themes often intersect with powerful real-world commentary, especially around environmental conservation. He noted, "We won't protect what we don't love and care about."
And this is where his science-driven perspective shines. He pushes us to recognize the deep consciousness in non-human species. He specifically referenced current research using AI and LLMs to decode the complex vocalizations or codas of sperm whales.
Those being those distinct clicks and patterns they make. And what are researchers finding?
They're discovering that these vocalizations aren't just random sounds. They possess syntax, complex language, at least as intricate as human language, which suggests a highly sophisticated level of social and conscious life.
He also pointed to the mirror test.
The ability to recognize oneself as an individual, yeah. A simple, powerful measure of high consciousness. It's passed by elephants, chimpanzees, dolphins, even a specific New Zealand parrot. But not, he noted, by dogs, despite their emotional intelligence.
It really challenges our comfortable human-centric view, doesn't it?
It does. His films encourage us to broaden the scope of our empathy, to see the other as a conscious being, not just a resource.
Let's talk about that empathy and duty and sacrifice.
Yeah.
We have to address the famous question about Titanic. The film itself was a massive risk.
Oh, huge. 3 hours long, most expensive film ever at the time, and everybody dies. The studio is panicking.
But he never wavered. And that conviction comes down to the critical moment at the end, the infamous door question. If we analyze that scene through the lens of duty and sacrifice, the answer to why couldn't Jack fit becomes a lot clearer.
What's the thematic explanation?
His answer is that Jack's chivalry demanded it. It wasn't about physics. It was about thematic integrity. The film was about love, death, and sacrifice. Jack knew he was the only one who could make that choice, knowing that risking them both meant a higher chance of losing Rose,
It's an act of selfless duty.
echoing the sacrifices you see in Terminator and Avatar. And that sense of duty is now driving his next proposed project, a film about Hiroshima. He feels a duty to remind people what nuclear weapons really are.
It's a compelling obligation. He cited the terrifying data. Today, there are 12,000 nuclear warheads, each hundreds of times more powerful than the one that destroyed Hiroshima. He feels a profound duty to issue that warning.
And this all circles back to his ultimate law for humanity. See the person in front of you. In the Navi concept of I see you, it means so much more than just recognition.
It implies understanding, presence, love, seeing who they are on the inside. It's the ultimate expression of expanded empathy.
That is a profound place to land. So let's bring this back to you, the learner, and summarize the core lessons from this deep dive into the world builder's mind.
Okay, lesson 1. Permission and preparation. The boldest step in any creative endeavor is giving yourself permission to try. You have to jump in wholeheartedly, but make sure you've put in the years of prep while you were, driving the truck.
And the second lesson is the incredible utility of constraints. Being fired, having a tiny budget, those moments of rigor, those made us 10 moments, are often the crucible that forces the most brilliant creativity. Don't fight them. Use them.
Finally, circle back to the scope of your empathy. He suggests we have this natural impulse toward empathy, but it's often too narrow powerful for family and friends, but then everyone else can start to look like the other, or even the enemy.
We have to expand that circle.
Exactly. To other cultures, other species, to achieve true understanding.
Which brings us back to the unexpected problem of success itself. Cameron noted that having infinite resources brings its own curse, the problem of infinite choice. If choice can be paralyzing and risk is necessary for great art, we leave you with this final provocative thought.
If you could magically remove all the constraints from your life, financial, time, logistical, date, would you be more or less likely to create something truly rigorous and timeless?
A good question to sit with. Thank you for diving deep with us today. We'll see you next time.